The sun was already setting when Iris dropped her pack in the area that would become her campsite for the night. The space was perfect, a small glen cradled by towering pines with a clear shot of the nighttime sky. It felt comforting, welcoming. These were the types of rewards she cherished as a solo camper. The discovery of a temporary home away from home in the heart of nature. It's part of what made it all worthwhile. Not that she was incapable of experiencing the same level of joy with friends, but there was something infinitely more rewarding when she happened across the perfect spot on her own after a day of intense hiking. She couldn't wait to set up camp. She was starving. Iris assembled her tent in record time, then changed into some warmer clothes. She always forgot just how quickly the temperature nosedived once the sun dropped behind the mountains. Once comfortably warm in a thick fleece, she scoured the vicinity for firewood. She couldn't get a fire going fast enough. She could practically taste her meal. And while the MRE of chicken parmesan she had packed was no Michelin star fare, she would be hard-pressed to tell the difference between it and a gourmet meal, as hungry as she was. She sifted through the deadfall and collected an armful of worthy contributors to the fire she was preparing to start. If there was anything better than a hot meal by a warm fire on a cool night, she didn't know what it was. Iris dumped the wood and swiftly assembled a crude circle from the rocks strewn across the ground. She placed her kindling, then built a teepee of sticks over it the way her father had shown her. Pulling out a waterproof match from a case, she had just prepared to strike it when an unexpected sight stopped her in place. Someone was watching her. The person wasn't making much of an effort to conceal themselves. He, at least Iris assumed it was a he based on size and stance, stood in a clearing through the trees at the bottom of a gentle slope. She estimated he was a couple of 100 yards away. It was plenty far, but not nearly far enough to put her at ease. She watched him for nearly 30 seconds from her crouched position by the fire pit. He continued to stare back, then, ever so subtly, he turned and walked off into the thick of the forest. Great, Iris thought. Now that's all she would think about. She was 99% certain the long-distance run-in was innocuous, the sort of looky-loo behavior one encountered when coming across another fellow human being in a place where there weren't supposed to be any. But it was that 1% that nagged at her. You're being ridiculous, she told herself. She'd solo camped numerous times and had similar experiences before, and while she was no Pollyanna, she didn't feel that everyone she came across in the forest was up to some nefarious deed. She'd never had a negative confrontation of any sort to speak of. Still, it didn't mean that she wasn't always on guard. It was probably a hiker trying to find his way back, she told herself, or more likely it was probably another solo camper. She didn't have a monopoly on individual adventures in the forest, and she was camping in a fairly popular area frequented by outdoor enthusiasts. Seeing others was to be expected. Convinced she was blowing things out of proportion, Iris built her fire and prepared dinner. She had never tasted anything so good. The sky clung to daylight by its fingernails. Stars were already gathering in the growing pitch, the moon a waxing crescent that looked pinned in place over the valley. Iris breathed in the nighttime air, an intoxicating mix of wood smoke, pine, and damp moss. Content, she turned her attention to her journal. She was never more honest with herself than when she was away from all the trappings of modern society. How easy it was when she was at home to be distracted by a seemingly endless selection of streaming services and an equal number of social media platforms. She couldn't write more than 2 sentences before she felt the inexorable pull from one or both of them. But here, in the darkness lit only by fire, she could focus and think clearly. It was part of the reason she so enjoyed taking her nature-based excursions. Disconnection was good for the soul. Iris let her eyes trail past the fire into the darkness as she considered her next entry. She had just settled upon an idea when she locked on something in the trees. A flashlight beam. Iris sat up. The light appeared to emanate from the bottom of the slope, from roughly the same direction as the man she had seen earlier, only the light was significantly closer now than he had been. Was this the same person from before? Or was this somebody else out for a late evening stroll? Though her heart rate became elevated, Iris reminded herself that not all encounters were born of malevolence. She continued to watch the light. It was strange. It didn't seem to move. It didn't pan from side to side or splash across the ground, and it showed no signs of the jittery movements typically associated with the person walking. It only remained fixed, the light seeming to shine in her direction. Iris stood up. What was this person doing? She decided to cross to the opposite side of the fire and put it to her back, stepping just out of its periphery of light. Doing this would not only give her a clearer line of sight to whoever was shining the light, but also limit their visibility of her. She stepped further into the darkness, watching, when the light suddenly snuffed out. Iris waited for it to reappear, but it didn't. She was officially on edge. Whoever the person was, they were displaying odd behavior. Some might even call it threatening. For why would anyone point a stationary light into a campsite if not to provoke the people there? Iris had intended to sit by the fire for the next several hours, but now she felt compelled to let it die out and retreat inside her tent. It frustrated her to alter her evening plans because of someone else, but for certain individuals, a nighttime forest was a license to be a menace. She didn't know whether the person with the flashlight was one of them, but she had no intention of staying outside to find out. Iris retrieved her journal and kicked dirt over the flames until only embers smoldered. She waited until nothing glowed from the fire pit, then she went to bed. It was 9:40. At 12:36 a.m., she was awakened by a faint glow inside her tent. Rousing, she groggily looked around, then realized a light was shining from outside. Her pulse ratcheted up and any remaining sleepiness evaporated. She crawled to the tent entrance, undid the zipper from the flap, and stuck her head outside. The flashlight was back, and it was much closer. So close that it cast dim shadows in the trees and on objects around camp. Iris was done playing around. She climbed out of the tent without putting on her shoes and took a pair of purposeful strides toward the light. "Can I help you with something?" she called out with no small amount of attitude, her voice sounding enormous in the dead quiet. No one responded. Iris shielded her eyes and tried to catch a glimpse of the person or persons tormenting her from less than 100 yards away. "It's 12:30 in the morning," she said. "You've got no business here, so please turn off your light and go somewhere else." Still, no one responded. "You hear me?" she belted, real irritation coming through. She didn't know what she would do if the person continued to stay mute and shine their flashlight at her, but fortunately, she wouldn't need to find out. After a clutch of seconds, just as before, the light snapped off. Iris tried to steady her erratic breathing and focus on the crunch of footsteps through the forest to gauge how many people she was dealing with, but the blood rushing in her ears was too loud to make out any movement. She exhaled and came to grips with her reality. She was officially being harassed. But what could she do? At least one person, perhaps more, skulked around in the forest near her campsite. She needed to leave, but it was too dark to make the 4-hour trek back to the car, and using her own flashlight to navigate would only reveal her position to anyone who might follow her. The sun would start to rise in a little over 5 hours. It was too long to wait and too dangerous to leave before then. Weighing her options, Iris decided that, as terrified as she was, the most prudent choice, the safer choice, was to wait until first light when she could see not only where she was going, but also if anyone followed her. Until then, she would stay awake and vigilant, using her own flashlight as a countermeasure if the person returned. With luck, she will have had her last encounter and will just spend the rest of the night uneventfully on edge. She was wrong. Following the confrontation, Iris packed up her camp. She broke down her tent and readied her pack so that she could go as soon as the first band of daylight bled into the horizon. But not 2 hours later, the light reappeared, this time within a stone's throw of her camp. Iris threw up a hand to block the intense light, which flooded her campsite. "What do you want?" Iris screamed. "Why are you doing this?" She stood then, snapping on her own flashlight and pointing it directly at the source. "You like that?" she hollered. "Huh? You like having light shined in your face?" In a move she immediately regretted but was now committed to, she walked toward the suspect light. She didn't get more than 3 steps when it suddenly shut off. Iris wildly panned her flashlight over the area where the light had come from. Surely she should be able to catch a glimpse of someone scurrying away, but she saw no one. More than that, she heard no one. Real fear began to creep in. Iris checked her watch. 2:20. Daylight was still several hours away, and now someone lurked very nearby. She paced her camp, her eyes flitting among the black trees as she weighed her options, when the light snapped back on, fully bathing her in its brightness. It was terrifyingly close, just on the opposite side of the campsite, not 30 yards from where she stood. And this time, it was joined by a second light. Iris was done being cautious. She dropped her pack and charged into the forest away from the lights. Shadows and flashes of white danced over the trees, a sure sign that the lights behind her were on the move. Their motion disoriented Iris, causing her to veer too close to a downed tree and drop her flashlight when she smacked the hand holding it on a section of protruding trunk. For the briefest of moments, Iris considered stopping to retrieve it, but the lights were bearing down on her. She didn't have a second to lose. Abandoning her flashlight, Iris descended deeper into the dark forest. She had no idea where she was, no idea where she was going, her only goal to get away from the people with the lights. Then, darkness. Iris was plunged into black silence as the lights shut off. She stopped in place in tears, her breathing shaky, tremulous. She strained against the darkness to hear her assailants, hoping their footsteps would recede into the forest. But as before, she heard nothing. She waited there, listening, anticipating, battling to get herself under control. She wasn't out of this yet. She scanned the darkness for what felt like an eternity, but she neither saw nor heard any movement. Had they gone? Had she lost them? Iris couldn't be sure of either possibility, but she also knew she couldn't wait around in case she was wrong about both. With a cautious, centering breath, Iris quietly turned around and took a step forward. It was the only step she would take. For no sooner did her foot set down on the forest floor than 3 lights suddenly appeared around her, blinding her with their brilliance. Iris screamed, but no one heard her. No one, that is, except those with the lights.